Babylon. The very name carries the weight of legend. A city so vast, so magnificent, that ancient writers struggled to describe it without sounding like they were inventing a myth. Walls so thick that chariots raced along their tops. Gardens that seemed to float in the sky. A tower that men believed could touch the heavens themselves. This was not a myth. This was a city. And for nearly 2,000 years, it was the center of the known world. This is the full story of Babylon. From a forgotten village on the banks of the Euphrates to the greatest city on earth, and its ultimate, devastating collapse. Before Babylon. The land between two rivers. That is what Mesopotamia means. The Tigris and the Euphrates carve through what is now modern Iraq, creating a ribbon of fertile land in the middle of a vast desert. This is where civilization is born. By 3000 BC, the Sumerians have already built cities here. They invented writing, mathematics, the wheel. They are the foundation on which everything else is built. Babylon at this point is a small, unremarkable settlement. A minor town among dozens. Nothing about it suggests what is coming. Then the Akkadian Empire rises under Sargon the Great around 2334 BC, uniting the region under a single ruler for the first time. Babylon exists within this empire, still small, still quiet. But the land is rich. The river is generous. And the city is perfectly positioned at the crossroads of trade routes stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. It is only a matter of time. The First Babylonian Empire. Around 1894 BC, an Amorite king named Sumuabum establishes an independent dynasty in Babylon. The city begins to grow. Temples rise. Walls are built. But Babylon is still one city among many in a fractured, competitive region. That changes with one man. Hammurabi. He takes the throne around 1792 BC and transforms Babylon from a regional power into an empire. Through a combination of military conquest and shrewd diplomacy, he brings nearly all of Mesopotamia under Babylonian control. At its height, his empire stretches from the Persian Gulf to modern-day Syria. But Hammurabi's greatest legacy is not conquest. It is law. The Code of Hammurabi, 282 laws carved into an 8-foot column of black stone, is one of the earliest written legal codes in human history. An eye for an eye. Wages for workers. Rights for women. Punishments for corruption. For the first time, a ruler declares that law applies to everyone. The powerful and the powerless alike. Picture this city at its peak. Temples dedicated to Marduk, the chief god of Babylon, rising above a sea of mud brick homes. Merchants from Egypt, Persia, and the Indus Valley trading in crowded markets. Scribes recording everything on clay tablets, contracts, hymns, astronomy, medicine. Babylon is not just a military power. It is a civilization. Then Hammurabi dies. And within a generation, the empire begins to crack. Centuries of struggle. After Hammurabi, Babylon enters a long period of turbulence. The Kassites, a people from the Zagros Mountains, invade and rule for over 4 centuries, the longest dynasty in Babylonian history. They are not destroyers. They adopt Babylonian culture, maintain its temples, and preserve its traditions. But the city's greatness dims. Then come the Assyrians. The Assyrian Empire is one of the most feared military machines the ancient world has ever seen. They are brutal, systematic, and utterly relentless. In 689 BC, the Assyrian king Sennacherib does the unthinkable. He destroys Babylon completely. Temples torn down. Canals flooded. The city reduced to rubble. He even diverts the Euphrates over the ruins to erase any trace of it. The ancient world is shocked. Babylon is not just a city. It is a sacred place. Destroying it feels like an act against the gods themselves. And perhaps it is. Sennacherib is assassinated by his own sons shortly after. His successor, Esarhaddon, rebuilds Babylon. Because even the Assyrians understand, you cannot rule Mesopotamia without Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar and the Golden Age. In 612 BC, the Assyrian Empire collapses. Babylon rises again under the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and under one king, it reaches heights that the ancient world will never forget. Nebuchadnezzar II. He rules from 605 to 562 BC and turns Babylon into the most spectacular city on earth. The numbers alone are staggering. The city covers nearly 2,500 acres. The outer walls are wide enough for 2 chariots to pass side by side along their tops. The population reaches perhaps 200,000 people, making it the largest city in the world at that time. The Ishtar Gate is his masterpiece. A towering entrance to the city covered in brilliant blue glazed tiles, decorated with dragons and bulls in gold and white. Walking through it, you feel the power of a civilization at its absolute peak. And then there are the Hanging Gardens. Ancient writers describe them in breathless detail. Terraced gardens rising like a green mountain above the flat desert plain, filled with trees, flowers, and waterfalls, fed by an ingenious system of pumps drawing water from the Euphrates. Whether they truly existed as described remains one of history's great debates. But the fact that people across the ancient world believe they existed tells you everything about what Babylon represented. It was the city where the impossible was ordinary. Nebuchadnezzar also conquers Jerusalem, destroys Solomon's temple, and brings the Jewish people to Babylon in what becomes known as the Babylonian captivity. This event echoes through 3 world religions for thousands of years. Babylon becomes, in the Hebrew Bible, a symbol of exile, oppression, and worldly sin. The city's reputation will be complicated forever. The Fall. Nebuchadnezzar dies in 562 BC. Within 20 years, 4 different kings sit on the Babylonian throne. The empire is fracturing from within. Then comes Cyrus the Great. The Persian king has already built the largest empire the world has ever seen. In October 539 BC, his forces approach Babylon. According to ancient sources, he diverts the Euphrates River, drops the water level, and his soldiers wade through the riverbed beneath the city walls and into Babylon itself. The city falls in a single night, almost without resistance. Cyrus is shrewd. He does not destroy Babylon. He presents himself not as a conqueror but as a liberator, chosen by Marduk himself to free the Babylonians from their weak kings. He allows the Jewish captives to return home. He respects the temples. He rules Babylon as a king of Babylon, not as a foreign occupier. It is a masterclass in conquest. But it is still the end. Under Persian rule, then Greek rule after Alexander the Great captures the city in 331 BC, Babylon slowly fades. Alexander plans to make it the capital of his empire. He dies there in 323 BC before he can. After his death, his generals fight over his empire and Babylon is neglected, then abandoned. By the 1st century AD, the great city is largely empty. The mud brick walls, without constant maintenance, begin to dissolve back into the earth. The Euphrates shifts course. The desert moves in. The city that once touched the sky disappears beneath the sand. What Babylon left behind? Archaeology began uncovering Babylon's ruins in the 19th century in modern-day Iraq. The Ishtar Gate was excavated and reconstructed. It stands today in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Thousands of clay tablets have been recovered, preserving Babylonian astronomy, mathematics, and literature for modern scholars. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories ever written, survived in Babylonian libraries. It contains a flood story remarkably similar to Noah's Ark, written 1,000 years before the Bible. Babylon gave the world its first legal code, its first astronomical charts, its first maps of the known world. The number 60, still the basis of how we measure minutes and seconds, comes from Babylonian mathematics. A city buried under desert sand for 2,000 years still shapes how we live today. That is the true measure of Babylon's greatness. Not its walls, not its gardens, but the ideas it refused to let die. Which ancient city should we bring back to life next? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the past.